Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This is an odd one. I don't think I've ever disliked looking at the cover of a review book quite as much as this one, and that is The Best of Bizarro Volume 1. This is an anthology from Planet Bizarro, an indie press that specializes in strange things, namely absurdism or fabulism, that kind of extra bit of strangeness on top of the world, but also there are some stories in this that count as full sci-fi. But this one I actually got because I reviewed one of these short stories in this separately. I reviewed A Puppet Scorned by Jamie Court. I will have the link down in the description. And when he applied to have this one accepted into the anthology, he then was like, hey, I know this reviewer. And I got the full thing. And I'm really glad that I knew that short story was going to be in here going into it, because the curation of this collection is a little bit off. Namely, I don't think they chose the best story to begin the anthology with. The first short story is all about the new faces of Mount Rushmore. A president comes in a far future of America and decides to recarve the faces of Mount Rushmore. But the problem is that this story, while being absurd, is very mean-spirited. It reads like an angry political Facebook post. Very much every single American is fat, stupid, lazy, violent, very broad strokes, and it just reads like the very cliche political critiques that we've heard a million times over. And the absurdism doesn't really add anything. It didn't really do anything besides make it so extreme that its message was completely lost. And it's strange to me because there were so many others in this collection that had that absurdism, had that fabulism, that wasn't that mean. And it felt mean for no reason because, again, it's every single American in the entire story is horrible, evil, whatever. And I'm like, okay, what is this saying? Or are we just wanting to be cruel? So I'm really glad that I knew at least one of the other short stories in the collection was one I would like. And I did reread it. I'm not going to go in depth into that story because it already got its own standalone review. But the first one is the meanest and the longest. And the last one, which is basically satire, absurd, tongue-in-cheek retelling of the story of Ezekiel from the Bible, also has a lot of mean-spirited elements, but, you know, if you got that religious trauma, you might appreciate the mean-spirited elements. That one at least felt like it had a little bit more of a purpose in it, but it was just strange that you had all of these stories in the middle that were sweet or were saying something that were making really good use of the absurdism or the fabulism to give an analogy. And then you had the bookends that were just the longest and most mean-spirited of the entire thing. So if you are looking into this collection and you're not interested in that kind of thing, you can probably just skip the first story because there are really, really cute stuff in here. And I particularly liked A Shed Full of Pebbles. And, I'm gonna forget the name of it. I think I only wrote down like Sow Resort or something, but it was essentially sci-fi where this giant space pig got turned into a resort and these sentient tapeworms were going to the resort to compete on a dating show. And I loved that. That was one of the most standout stories for me of the entire collection. And again, there were some great analogies in the absurdism, talking about things like how we view body modifications and how altering your body can be seen as a great source of creativity and kind of taking ownership of yourself. I love that kind of thing. There was a lot of stories in here worth your time, I believe. I am a little bit anxious to continue. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to continue reading this anthology collection, because obviously this is volume 1, so they very clearly want to continue this in the future, but I don't know how much I want to risk it if there's going to be those kind of mean-spirited stuff. And also, there was so much casual violence and gore in this book. Like, so much of it, so much casual murder. And it was like, it was kind of telling me, because obviously, like, I was expecting the body horror stuff from the sock puppet erotic horror, but there were other stuff where it was like, the absurdity was making the murder not really matter. Like, that didn't really read as absurdity to me. Like, I genuinely thought, oh, that person that's just casually sacrificing an orphan as part of their job, that's bad. Like, that just is bad. And the absurd framework of it didn't make the casual death and gore less bad to me. My absurdity meter doesn't stretch that far, I guess. Absurdity and fabulism does not cover all topics. You still need to, for me at least, be saying something or be mindful of how your characters look, even when they're in this ultra absurd context. And obviously, the anthology, like the press, doesn't have that much control over what goes into the book, although, you know, they do get final say. But in general, I'd have to check it out first if I wanted to read the next one, because I don't know what would go into the process, because there were several stories in this that I most definitely did not like. So I don't know if I would keep reading from these anthologies, but there were also some that I definitely did like. So I'm probably going to like go back and check out those authors' work more in depth. Yeah, Shed Full of Pebbles really was just the sweetest little like analogy for how growing old doesn't have to suck and can be a sweet moment. Like, that was almost absurdly adorable with what it was. But in general, you see the cover. You know what you're getting into when you get into this. You are going to need to like strange things if you jump into this. Like I mentioned before, you're going to need to be okay with a lot of casual gore and murder. The guy being split in two, but still walking around living, that was an interesting one. Good analogy, but just a weird story to read. So yeah, definitely be aware of that. These are going to be odd stories, clearly. The cover does not lie. But in general, I did give it 4 stars, mostly because the stories I liked enough to outweigh the stories that I did not like, but I still have some concerns with the way that it was curated. Regardless, if you want to up your weird cred, reaffirm that you are that hipster that reads the weird stuff, definitely pick this one. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.